Hello there. I just opened a bubbly that I realized, carbonated water. Would have been cool to actually open that as the beginning sound in salvo for the episode. It's 5:09 p.m. on Sunday, the 17th of May, 2026. And I have left Trail Days, and I'm just now leaving my parents' house. Hey, shout out to my parents. And will now be driving a couple of hours further south so that I can actually go on a kind of impromptu family reunion vacation kind of thing. And I'm pretty stoked about that. My car is a mess right now. This is not my preferred state of being, and I feel like it's probably pretty loud. But, I just, I've been in the car since about 1 p.m. or so, and I've just been kind of decompressing, a little bit. Trail Days is a wonderful festival that is, I don't know, there's so many things to do there as a hiker, and ultimately just as a human being, that are very, very, gratifying and validating. But I don't necessarily consider myself an introvert. Maybe this is part of me being stubborn about the way I define myself, but for sure, I may not technically be an introvert, but I do spend a lot of my time alone, and Trail Days is not being alone, that's for sure. There's some sort of an important distinction there for me, where I was I do like hanging out with people, and it just so happens that a lot of the activities that I do for leisure, they're hard to rope other people into, and so I just I think it was in college, just basically, I don't even think I necessarily stopped asking if people wanted to join me, but I guess I just came to terms and acceptance with the fact that most of the time, you get so many no's, and at a certain point you're just I'm not even going to ask anymore. But it's not a bitter thing. It's it turned out to kind of just be an awesome thing. I love and can handle being alone, and I think that as a social species, I think that's something that you do have to work for, work toward, work on, work at, But before I get too lost in the sauce, I do want to give perhaps the biggest shout out that I've ever attempted to cobble together. I really got to give my dude, my homie Travis, just the largest shout out that I have ever attempted to create. Now there were a lot of shout outs that are worthy from the past few days that I was out in Damascus, Virginia at Trail Days, but first and foremost, right down the center line, we got to start with my dude Travis. Just a consummate host, and was able to show me a side of Trail Days that I've just never experienced before. I think I've probably gone to nearly every Trail Days festival since 2019, maybe with the exception of maybe one or two. It's kind of hard for me to remember exactly, but I guess there was also COVID thrown in there, so I don't actually know. I might have gone to every single one that's actually been held, which I guess is kind of like saying the same thing twice. But yeah, in any case, I've been there many, many times in various states of my own life, either as a hiker or as a cyclist, or I have driven there before as well. Yeah, just all forms of transportation I've used to get there. And, for me personally, speaking for myself, if you don't mind, I am certainly someone who I don't even want to say that I like tasks. It's almost like that I need them. The needfuls. Hey, go figure. That branding goes even deeper than I thought. And so, yeah, I need to do something. Otherwise, I start to feel restless, right? I don't know why that happens in me. I've never really looked that that gift horse in the mouth, so to speak. I just consider it a part of my operating system. Just like I want to be occupied during certain hours of the day with things to do. And I guess it basically earned my keep. There was a lot of earning my keep this weekend for sure. And it wasn't even, no, I guess it was a weekend. But yeah, just an amazing time. Travis is a consummate host. And I think that he sees me in a way that like I want to be seen, my true colors, as it were. And I think I'm going to say pretty uncontestedly, as far as my own opinions are concerned, which again, if you'll allow me to speak for myself, I think that was probably my favorite trail days I've ever had. And that was a huge part. Travis was a huge part of that, if not the sole reason, the pivot point for that. It was amazing. Just like I felt useful. Usually, I've like I said, I've been to a lot of trail days, and generally speaking, I am sometimes ready to leave far before it's even over. And I have to say, also, it's kind of funny. At this moment, I am nursing what I can only call a Taco Bell hangover. There's certainly drinking and, what do they call it? It's not, well, I don't even know. There's drinking involved in this. I mean, there doesn't have to be, but there's a lot of drinking that occurs at trail days. And I kept mine in pretty good control. Like, I don't go to these kinds of things with intentions of consuming drastically more of anything than I ever would. And so I've not really felt even though I've been going to bed really late and drinking throughout the night, like I woke up feeling, reasonably well. Like I really think that there's something to the way that I dose my caffeine consumption. I have a little bit of a pet theory now that something about a massive dose of caffeine intensifies the feelings of what do you call that? Hangxiety. Like if you've consumed a bit more than your usual limits, there is a bit of a dark hole that you can enter the morning after, which I've heard is because of your body again trying to reestablish the equilibrium and the homeostasis and all the other words. Because you just experience like a profound sense of pleasure, you will now necessarily have to experience its opposite as part of like the recalibration process. To me, experientially, I agree that that is what it feels like, but biologically, I'm not entirely sold. Not that I have any credentials to have any suspicions, but we're all just speaking our truths here, But yeah. I feel like I want to keep my broad strokes of my experience at trail days relatively anonymous, just because I don't know. I feel like I've had my hand slapped from the cookie jar many times by not anonymizing people. This is a lesson from many years ago when I would actually carry around like a physical separate recording device. I guess this would have been like shortly after study abroad in Japan. So, we're talking like 2013. I always wanted to be able to record something if the opportunity arose. And let's just say I was sometimes I was hard about getting people to sign consent forms or whatever, so to give me permission to basically incorporate them into something that I was making. It's such a weird situation to be in as a podcaster, because if you're listening to a conversation and you're like, damn, this is like one of those good ones where we're both going to joke about this, just it's going to be a joke after we're done that we should have recorded it. It's like that was a good conversation. And I feel like I'm a little bit sensitive to when a conversation goes to a place where I'm like, oh, I would like to have a version of this that exists forever and not just have it go into the ether. And so, I would just record things without any kind of regard for what I was recording, who I was recording. I mean, I never got in any actual trouble or anything like that, but oftentimes, shout out to my parents, I feel like it was made apparent to me, there you go, that these were not best practices. So I don't do that anymore. But, yeah, and that's why I anonymize people. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know if I can do like a clean, like, outline of a day-by-day, blow-by-blow, you know? That's like not really my style. It would be harder for me to try to reconstruct it that way than it would be just to talk about more sweeping things, but maybe I'm wrong, I don't even know. But yeah, like, my sense of the whole thing, generally speaking, was just that, I don't know, I felt, you know, when I went to the fraternity reunion with my dad, I was, I can say, I don't think envious is the right word, because that seems like a little bit too loaded with, like, deadly sin energy, you know, like, because I didn't feel like, that I wanted something that I felt someone else didn't deserve. Like, these guys have put in the time. I guess I was touched, okay? I was touched by the camaraderie and the literal fraternal relationships between these men, and I was like, yeah, this is a cool thing to have. Like, you know, it's I don't know what it is, but, you know, human relationships through time. Well, am I just talking about stuff that's obvious? Maybe. What is even my point? I don't know. Well, the Appalachian Trail and my experience of it this time, that was like exactly, if you wanted to call it envy, what I feel like I experienced over this weekend was like, basically my version of the thing that I wished I had gotten from others or something like that. I feel like I'm losing the thread here, but, you know, it was great. It was great to have a schedule, like a practical, reliable way of going through all of the events and everything of trail days. And I guess what? Yeah, so I mean, basically it would come down to, I got there on Thursday night, I think, and it was after hours, was it? Yes. So the vendors were done for the day, I believe, or at least Travis was at the house, and I was able to very quickly, you know, pack all my stuff out. I was made aware that because of a pretty unfortunate event, which I guess I've heard that this has been posted on social media, so I suppose I can be specific, but there was a guy who was supposed to be sharing the cabin with Travis, and he had a medical emergency. He had a stroke, and so all of a sudden this bedroom was open, and I had every intention of going to be in this cabin area with Travis and others and sleeping out of my car the whole time. But it's kind of funny, I have actually only ever slept in my car with the bed frame that I made in my parents' driveway. I've never actually taken it anywhere, and I slept in there for, I want to say, like a couple of weeks, maybe even bordering on like a month or something like that. And even still, I have not actually used it away from their home yet. So I actually was able to get a room at this cabin, which was very, very nice. And the cabin itself was on a beautiful spot of the general area. You know, it was right on the river, which I feel like I probably could guess what the name of that river is. I feel like that's information I should have, but I can't think of what it is. But yeah, right on the river, so you have that constant kind of drone of water over stone, and a great porch area that Travis's dog, shout out to Murphy, was able to, you know, enjoy the evenings with us on, and he was being a very good boy during all of the times that he did so. But yeah, just, you know, a lot of socializing and a lot of like just meeting people, and sort of a blending of like groups that I was formerly like not a part of, and then just completely accepted and embraced by, which was really nice. Like, you know, it made me self-aware in a certain sense, where I was like, man, I'm so lucky that I'm not the kind of person who other people don't want to be around. And I can only assume that that's like a sliding scale, because I feel like, you know, it's kind of a little bit rare to see a human being that you could like accurately describe as like utterly alone. Like they literally have no friends, no family, and maybe also shunned by society. But for me, I just feel like a profound sense of gratitude, I suppose, for the fact that I am the way that I am. And I know I have my moments, like I'm certainly not always a charming cup of tea, but I'm glad that they're within like an acceptable range. Like, it's like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel very appreciative that I have ever had a girlfriend, because I'm kind of shocked that like any woman would be able to tolerate me, and I say this, joking and laughing, obviously, but there are parts and there are times where I'm just like, man, like, that is one thing about spending alone alone time is that you are alone, and it's just like, well, is this self-imposed, or am I actually slipping into something where like I'm repelling people, And, that's not really like a huge concern of mine, but I think it's a healthy thing to be aware of, because I would imagine that if you were backsliding into some sort of like, what would you call it? Antisocial, like, tendency or preference, I would assume that it would probably happen at a point where you didn't even realize you were like setting yourself up for that kind of a fate. I could be wrong. I haven't done any research. Did I mention that I think I did, yeah, the Taco Bell hangover. Notebook LM can maybe fact check me on this, but I'm not a huge consumer of Taco Bell, and I gotta tell you, the Taco Bell last night I had was delicious. Shout out to Travis. And so, Taco Bell has a certain kind of a reputation for how it can jive with the human body. And I think I have realized that is a relationship that probably won't be able to continue. Like, it's just this weird kind of unsettled feeling. Like I've barely eaten anything at all today, and I haven't felt worse for it. Like I feel like my body really just doesn't want any more food. And so, yeah, I guess that's about all I have to say. I just thought it was funny, and I guess I've said it twice now, so there's your proof. But yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm reluctant to. I'm reluctant to try to create like an exhaustive shout out list of people, because I know that I will inevitably forget to mention someone, and if they ever happen to listen to this and think that it was any kind of a purposeful omission, I would feel pretty bad about that, because there's nothing more that I would love than to give credit where credit is due. But there were a lot of people who I had really good conversations with, and just generally shared good vibes and space with. Like, it's interesting, and Notebook LM, you can take a note on this too, but Notebook LM will often characterize me as someone who hates small talk, which I don't hate small talk. I've actually vocally advocated for it in like general discussions about communication that I've had with other people. Because I actually think that small talk is great. Like, there were some of the conversations I had with others were just so pleasantly innocuous, and like, I don't know, it didn't feel like there was a lack of, it didn't feel defensive. Like, maybe, I guess, like, the thing about small talk is that, like, there's just like not that much there. So you're like spending time talking about stuff that you don't really care about, and maybe the other person doesn't care about anything anyway, but you can't stand the silence, so it's broken or whatever. But I had so many good conversations with people, and they weren't necessarily like my preferred, like, heavy laden, like, 3 beers in and talking about AI and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, it's just, it's nice to have all of that in one place, because I certainly did have those conversations as well, the heavier ones. But by and large, like, I just had a ton of communication with a bunch of great people that I felt like a very, very strong bond with. Again, I think what I'm doing is describing a pretty ordinary experience of, like, being at a festival, basically. But this one's a little bit more special to me anyway, just because I feel like Appalachian Trail Days is just like you had to put in some serious work to get there. Like, not only just obviously the physical trail, but just even like the culture that surrounds that trail. Like the festival, it would be harder to like it would be harder to understand it would maybe harder to participate in its value. I don't know. Maybe I'm giving, well, I don't even know. But for me, I feel like having done the thing, and then having this thing where a bunch of people who have also done the thing get back together and basically just talk about the thing that they did, I think that's awesome. You know, because my friend, the guy who introduced me to the Appalachian Trail, shout out to Ben, one of the things he told me that was really crushing initially, that kind of, as soon as I heard it, basically I was never able to forget, but he described it pretty well. He said, you know, for him and many people as well, the Appalachian Trail is the most important thing you'll ever do that no one will ever care about. You know, and I do think that by and large is true. Like, there are people who, you know, they make whole careers on the fact that they're thru hikers, and it's a big part of their identity, so on and so forth, and that's all fair, you know, of course. But like, it's basically impossible to convey to someone else, like what the experience meant to you, and you know, just the compression of time. Like, how do you describe to someone in a meaningful way, like the last 180 days of your life or whatever? And that would be difficult to do no matter what you were doing, like to give a meaningful snapshot of that kind of time span, you know. But, you know, quadruply, quintuply, sextuply, all those tuplies, like, it's so much harder to actually meaningfully account for one's time on the Appalachian Trail unless you've done it. And so being around a bunch of people who have done it and have had similar experiences that I'm kind of waxing poetic about now, like, you know, it's a powerful place to be. And again, I feel like Travis was able to really see my gifts, if I can call some of the things that make me a unique human gifts, which I think he would allow. Would you allow it, sir? Yeah, you know, like, I just felt very useful and appreciated, which if I think about some of the relationships in my life that have ended, it was because of a sore lack of those things, you know. And so this is a good relationship, and I really just appreciated my time there and feel a lot of gratitude for it, the people I was around and everything I got to experience. You know, by and large, it was pretty routine. Like, I would wake up, we'd have some time at the cabin to kind of get ourselves together, drink coffee, perhaps tidy up a bit, if you know what I'm saying. And then we would head to the tents, the vendor areas where people were selling things and having, you know, gear talk or food or all these kinds of stuff. Just, you know, rows and rows and rows of tents, and appropriately so. Although these are more like pavilions or something, you know, they're not real tents. But there were real tents there. I can confirm and promise you that. And then we would basically be at the tent for however long it was that we needed to be there. You know, usually, like, I don't know, it seemed like we were there until 6 every day, but I could be wrong. And, you know, I'm wearing my Sawyer shirt, my favorite Jolly gear. Hey, shout out to Jolly. And I have to say, shout out to Jolly's dad. I do believe your name is Henry, and I can't remember your trail name, but this man and I had had an amazing conversation the first night that I was there. And unfortunately, we weren't able to replicate the magic. Like, it was like ships in the night. Like, I would see him at trail days after I met him this first night, but there was so much going on, we weren't able to have another, like, fun conversation, and we did not cross paths after hours either, which I was sad about. But yeah, Jolly's dad is amazing, and the whole family's great, like, some real homies right there. And yeah, just a small condensed shout out to all of those folks who I got to get to know and spend time with. That was great. And yeah, I kind of at a certain point took on the role of trying to answer questions at the tent. I don't even know. it was not a conscious decision for me to start doing that. Like, it was interesting, again, in moments of like self-awareness, for me to realize that I was somewhere within myself, like, making a conscious choice. Obviously problematic language there for someone who believes in fate, but like the fact that I was like stepping into this role of like seeing that work could be done and that it might help the efficiency of the whole system for me to do that work, I could not help myself. And I was wearing my Sawyer shirt just because I love Jolly Gear and I love Sawyer. And so people actually just, maybe that's how it started. They started asking me questions, and I guess that makes sense. You know, I'm behind the tent, and like they don't know who I am. And so I would just do my best to answer them, and also defer to the experts when I knew that something was like out of my scope. I really, really don't like giving people information that is incorrect or biased if it's important information, you know? And a lot of the work that Sawyer does is important work that involves not only water purification, but, you know, they have a very plush selection and offering of insect repellents, and what else do they have that was popular? I suppose at our booth, well, sunscreen too. That was a pretty popular thing, especially as it started to warm up. But yeah, you know, what else? Got distracted. Thought a car was gonna make a bad choice, y'all. But yeah, yeah, we would work. I would try to do anything that needed to be done that someone would prefer someone else to do. I would do those tasks. I brought Jolly candy every morning, and that was fun. That was a nice little ritual. There's like a lot of little rituals, especially I guess within the vendor community, just kind of like things that you can expect and look forward to, and kind of key in on that kind of help that whole process of being behind the table at a tent as a presenter or a salesperson. It just seems so much more special. I guess it's that Appalachian Trail style deprivation and then kind of getting what you want. There was an awesome guy, shout out to Cookie Monster, who was just kind of like roving through the event and carrying coffee. He had cold brews and then he had hot brews, and he was walking around. He looked like a little like a Massachusetts ninja. Like he had this cool little backpack that was woven wood, and I don't know, just something about him seemed distinctly Far Eastern. I don't know. I'm gonna focus more on just him as a person. But yeah, a great guy. And man, he gave me some coffees at some point. I think I've had 2 coffees from him at this point, and yeah, they came at like the exact right time, right before I left today. Again, dealing with my Taco Bell hangover. Like I didn't really feel like I could stomach anything, but I felt like something should be in my stomach. And so I happened to see him on my way out, and he offered me a cold brew, and I put a couple of creamers in there, and you know, it didn't hurt my stomach, which was great, and it helped to make me feel not so empty. Like again, I just feel like this. I feel bloated and inflamed, you know, which is such a shame because, yeah, Taco Bell, I wish. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other outstanding. Oh, yeah, absolutely. There were several other outstanding things. So shout out to my dude Horsepower, Brandon. He ended up kind of like it was kind of fun how the weekend itself unfolded, because like it just seemed like all of these dominoes were falling perfectly into place. You know, from me suddenly having an actual room inside of the house, to me finding that there was like something for me to do while I was at Trail Days that was helpful and kept me close to the homies. And then also with Horsepower, Brandon, he ended up staying at the Airbnb with us too for 2 nights, which was really cool and unexpected. I think otherwise he was just sleeping in a tent, but I can't really remember what he was doing. At some point I heard that he was sleeping in a park, but I'm not really sure what that meant in the context of Trail Days, because you know, usually He's probably just in the parking lot, I guess, like right outside the library, maybe, which sounds miserable. But yeah, it was awesome to share time and literal space with him. Great conversations, hilarious nights of drinking and just hanging with the homies. It was funny, like, again, I'm trying to keep things relatively non-specific, but let's just say we all tried on a bunch of hats, and these hats brought out like interesting personalities from within us that were very fun to observe. It seemed like we were doing like long form improv for like 30 or 45 minutes, pretending to be cowboys. Brandon and I were, so I guess I'm just going to talk about it specifically. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but you know, I don't know. Again, the whole knowing what details I'm allowed to share versus ones that aren't necessarily mine. That's something that I feel like is a good trigger within me to pay attention to. So anyway, yeah, Brandon's awesome. I got to see my dude Miller. Shout out to Miller, who just wrote a book recently about, pretty recently, about his time on the Appalachian Trail called The Trail Provides. Brandon is also a writer, and I got his book, This Is Gonna Hurt, which I think is a great title, and I'm excited to read it. I got an autographed copy, y'all. Very, very cool. And Travis was also kind enough to be able to help me get an autographed copy of Heather's, oh my god, I'm going to forget her trail name. Tip of my tongue, hold on. It's not Anish, yeah. Got me a signed copy of that book, and shout out to you, my dude, thank you. So interestingly, I have a lot of books to read now, and that's cool. I'm actually very excited to read both, and I don't know, start my own little book club or something. But yeah, I'm trying to remember. Oh man, yeah, it was just really good camaraderie, you know, and I was feeling like I was getting to a place in my habits and my routines right now where I was just like, man, like, respectfully, and this is my fault, but every single day kind of seems like the same day, you know, and like that it's certainly a feeling that I kind of try to fight that when I am experiencing it. Like I will kind of push myself to say yes to things that maybe I would be less inclined to do, because at least it's something to do. Again, like that whole concept of me needing a task is like, it's a real thing, you know. It's probably, if I'm to say that there is a specific quality that makes me a decent worker, I'd probably say that it's like the fact that I honestly want to work. Like I do like relaxing, but I want to earn it, and I want to earn it by doing good work. You know, I want to feel proud of myself by the time I finally like open a beer, that like I at some point along the way did work that day that justifies that indulgence, you know. That's how you keep the karmic scales balanced, my dude. And yeah, that's one of the things I'm thinking about. I have not done digital needfuls since Wednesday, so I do feel quite behind in that. And I'm on my way now, like I mentioned already. This truck is really slow, and that's saying something. As I told Travis and Brandon, horsepower. They were all talking about different ways of driving, and I was like, you know, they were saying, Brandon said something like, you know, I try to stay 7 to 9 miles above the speed limit, and I was like, dude, I stay 1 mile an hour above the minimum. Like I'm going like 41 miles an hour when I'm on the interstate, you know, and I don't really do that because that would be dangerous. But you know, it's just funny. Why am I even talking about that? I don't even know. I guess because I was mentioning that truck was slow. Yeah. And so, yeah, I don't have any overarching thoughts beyond just like a general report of the happenings with the homies. And I'm glad to see that it's 35 minutes long. Excuse me. Because I feel like I have a lot, I guess what I'm saying, what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, is that I have a lot of feels about the past few days. And perhaps they'll continue to solidify so that I can report back as the processing continues and all. But yeah, this is just like my knee-jerk reaction, having come back online from extreme socialization, and then also being Taco Bell hungover, which again, Notebook LM, get back to me on that. Is that a thing? Yeah, it's just been great. I am grateful, and I'm not really tired, which I don't know how that's possible, but, I'm not, again, there's certain gift horses you don't look in the mouth. And, yeah, I'm really stoked about going to Florida. Like, I think that's actually going to feel like a vacation. Let's say hypothetically that I used to know someone who would go to events that involved animals doing things and then being evaluated on the things that they did. And those events were always extremely stressful. Like, it wasn't a bad stress. I actually really liked it because, again, I had so much to do that I was really drowning most of the time, running back and forth. It's minor stuff, but it really does make a big difference in people's day if you can, go and get a rag for them so that they don't have to stop what they're doing in order to get the rag themselves. It's like, I like being that bridge between what people want and what they currently have. I guess I'm like a human AI in that respect. The Skywalker, as it were. But yeah, this is going to feel like a real vacation. All the stress and the high pace of trail days will certainly be very absent from Florida. And I do, there's a part of me that feels a natural pull to go to Florida once a year in the summer. For at least 30 years, my dad's side of the family would have a reunion, and this is kind of what I'm doing now, is a miniaturized version of that. But basically, for a week, we would all get in a huge house, like unbelievably large, like almost comical with how many bedrooms and elevators and stairs, and I don't know if any of them ever had 2 kitchens, but I feel like that's certainly a possibility. I think maybe they did. I can't remember. But in any case, heading down to have that experience, which again, I'm looking forward to catching up on life a little bit. I probably should have grabbed my hair cutters because I have a feeling like I'm going to want to shave and cut my hair, and now I'm not going to be able to. But hey, that's on me. And yeah, after that, who knows? I guess the only big thing coming up in my life of real consequence is that on the 25th of this month, which I believe is Memorial Day, I'm going to, bite the bullet about what I'm doing next in terms of my living arrangements. And I have to admit, I'm a little nervous about that because the idea of renting a somewhat expensive apartment in Atlanta without having a job makes me nervous because I don't want to get into a position where I can't pay for my rent, I can't buy food, something like that. I don't think that would happen because I think I would like to give myself credit that I'm more resourceful than that. But if I'm going to have a human moment, I do feel that creeping sense of that could be a bind that I'm getting myself into, and that's also, it's a double bind because it's a double blind bind. My plan is to use that pressure that I'm feeling and reframe it in a productive way, which is that I really need to focus on getting a job. It's kind of like hiking the Appalachian Trail. What's the problem? It's like, well, I'm not at the finish line yet. And it's like, well, what's the solution? It's like walking. And so, the problem is I don't have a job and I need one. And so the way you solve that is you get a job. And, I can get other kinds of jobs. I don't have to necessarily start a career. So, I just need to be aware of the fact that, time is money. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, at the moment, we continue to live in that kind of a paradigm. But yeah, that's kind of what the rest of the month is looking like. and it's a lot of rapid change right here at the end of May. After I'm kind of putting this together now. I didn't really realize I had a precast off ramp. Like I'm just now realizing that whatever kind of doldrums I might have felt like I was getting myself into, I already set an expiration date. I probably should have enjoyed myself more. But hey, I'll save that for deathbed confessions. But yeah, to all the great people who I met this weekend, whether or not you're listening, that's not the point. A huge, sincere thank you and shout out to all those who I share time with. The ones who I named, certainly. Oates. I have to give a huge shout out to Oates. I can't believe that one almost snuck by me. So Oates is the Sawyer representative who was actually the main, like the what would you even call it? Head honcho is the only word that's coming to mind, but she was doing a lot of the heavy lifting at the actual tent itself, the event tent that Sawyer was displayed at. And I learned a lot from her. I learned a lot about Sawyer. It was kind of amazing. Like, it was such a high stakes situation because, again, I hate not knowing the answer to a question that I know is a good question that I should know the answer to. How many gallons can the Sawyer Mini go through? Like, what is the lifespan of that unit? Which I learned, I want to say it was 100,000 gallons. Ooh, I hope that's right, Travis. I should, if there's a Sawyer test, a product test, I feel like I would score better than average. It was a pretty narrow grouping of the total offerings of the company, but I feel like I got to know the materials pretty well. Anyway, all of that aside, Oates was great, and having Through Dog there and Murphy there. Through Dog is Oates' dog, and Murphy is Travis's. It was just good vibes, man. Good times with the homies, which I've actually developed a bit of a fondness for that word. Obviously my standard, what would you call that? Familial greeting is my dude, and I love my dude. It's not something I ever said before 2019. Certainly not in the frequency that I do now. And that was because my dude, Compton, shout out to Compton, he would say it all the time. And the way it sounded like a platonic pet name. And I think platonic pet names are important. I think regular, non-platonic pet names are vitally important. I don't know if this is true, and this is a bit of an aside, but perhaps you're used to that. I don't know if this is true about myself, but I feel like, given the relationships that I've had, which are not very many with women, if I don't feel comfortable calling them babe, that's a red flag. It should feel like and I've had girlfriends who didn't specifically like that pet name, which is a problem in and of itself, but like something about me, I default to the word babe to talk about my partner. It's like babe. I don't know why. I like it, and so homies, or my dude, I guess all this is just to say, I feel like homie is really kind of climbing my it's climbing my lexicon ladder, and I like it. There's some real oomph to it now. Homies, when I think about homies, and I meant to say this to Travis, but maybe I should just send him the music video if he's not already seen it. But there's this Insane Clown Posse song, and I think it's just called Homies, and it's just such a, it's not a bad song. Like, I'm not an Insane Clown Posse fan, but I've listened to it a lot, and it's to me it's kind of funny because I'm just so not a part of that culture. If you're not familiar with Insane Clown Posse, you should look them up. They dress like, they have face paint, and they look like clowns, and one of their big gimmicks is that everyone loves Faygo soda, which I think that's like, where are they from? Detroit, I think. I don't know if that's a Michigan thing. Travis, you can check me on that too. Or Notebook LM. But yeah, the music video for the song Homies is just, I don't know, it's something that was comically laughable that became actually endearing. And, you know, I feel like I can vouch for that now. I feel like I have become a homie, and I am a part of a group of homies, like a new group, you know. And, you know, it's cool. Like, as an older person, 36, you know, especially with reports of things like loneliness epidemics and things like that, it's nice, again, this is full circle now, it's nice to go and find nice people that you genuinely like, and then to have that returned in kind. Like, I think that was the thing that I walked away from feeling the most. I was just like, I'm just so glad that I'm accepted. And that, like, that's like, I don't want to say it's something I take for granted, because I don't. You know, I'm very aware of the fact that could not be the case. I feel like other people have to suffer that fate sometimes, and my heart breaks for them. But to know that I'm at least that average is it's nice. And I don't mean average as in like mundane, although I do think that I am profoundly mundane. It's nice to know that, you know, even a really, I don't even know, individual, solitary leaning kind of person, like, it's nice to know that very heavily ingrained social muscle is still alive and well. And so with that, I suppose I'll leave it there. 46 minutes is certainly not nothing, and this is with me like dealing with the Taco Bell hangover, my dude. So, you know, this is it's not the easiest clip I've ever made in my life, and yeah, it probably won't be the hardest either. So for now, I shall leave it with a classic shout out to my parents. Love you, bye. With love from the homies. Bye for now.